Charming, clever, and well-mannered, they remained unemployed. The king's legal wives were overshadowed by their favorites, and often, these ladies were not particularly beautiful. So why did this happen? Why did kings choose not to favor their crowned halves? When a queen felt lonely, and the monarch retreated to his country residence without her, the answer was simple. The favorite almost always outshone the queen. Every step of the queen's day, from the moment she awoke, was governed by strict rules. She rose surrounded by numerous ladies-in-waiting. One presented her nightgown, another her shoes, while a third lit the fireplace or candles. Everything was extravagant, ceremonial, and took a long time. The court had a clear hierarchy, with many individuals holding specific titles. Princesses, countesses, and duchesses needed to be employed, so they followed the queen everywhere in a colorful throng. In the early 17th century, Queen Marie de Medici's entourage included 464 ladies. There was no room for ease or privacy. Even the youngest and liveliest queen would inevitably turn into a stone statue in such an environment. After all, she had to uphold her status. In contrast, the favorite enjoyed a different reality. She was not surrounded by a dozen ladies-in-waiting, allowing her greater freedom of movement. A contemporary of King Charles II of England, writer John Evelyn, mentioned in his memoirs how the morning routine of the king's mistress, the Duchess of Portsmouth, unfolded. With a cheerful smile, she left her bed while His Majesty sat watching as her maid styled her hair. A completely different atmosphere compared to the Queen's chambers. Favorites began to thrive at court during a time when etiquette became particularly strict, in the 17th century. Before that, few women achieved such a status. In France, for example, the first official favorite was Agnes Sorel in the 15th century. But those were different times, more liberated for royal figures. Centuries later, court rules became exceedingly rigid, filled with numerous obligatory rituals. This only increased the need for a breath of fresh air. And where could one find it if the queen could hardly take a step without navigating complex formalities? The favorite, of course. Moreover, queens were often newcomers. Not all queens spoke the language of their new country well. It took the Spanish Infanta Maria Teresa years to learn French after marrying Louis XIV. The Portuguese princess from the Bragança dynasty who married King Charles II hardly understood her husband at all. How could they achieve mutual understanding? Add to this the differences in mentalities, traditions, and rituals. The Sun King could not stand his wife's dwarfs, while in Madrid, they were considered delightful company for young princesses. And Henrietta, a French-born queen, found herself in England unwilling to change her faith, which was crucial for London. In most cases, the favorite was one of their own. She was raised in similar circumstances and understood every joke. And if she had a sharp wit, all the better. Athénise de Montespan, one of the most dazzling mistresses of Louis XIV, was renowned for her sense of humor. If the queen could barely string a sentence together in French while a lady-in-waiting effortlessly juggled clever remarks, who do you think the king would favor? Certainly not his wife. Every queen was preoccupied with the matter of producing heirs, as that was her primary duty as the monarch's spouse. If difficulties arose, physicians and clergymen were called upon, and pilgrimages were made. This could be exhausting and often yielded no results. For instance, Charles II's wife never managed to produce a single heir. The queen's worries would lead her to either withdraw into herself or, with renewed fervor, observe fasts and make offerings to shrines. The favorite, on the other hand, did not concern herself with succession. If a child came along, great. If not, it didn't matter. Moreover, in the 17th century, it became common for monarchs to acknowledge their bastards and bestow titles upon them. A comfortable existence was guaranteed for all the children of both Louis and Charles. So, the king's mistress only had to worry about one thing: how not to lose the king's favor. This was another advantage of being a favorite. If she lost her charm or the king's trust, the relationship could always be severed. Even the powerful Montespan could not withstand the suspicion that fell upon her during the affair of the poisons. Despite having several children and many years of the king's affection, the Marchioness lost her status. In contrast, ending a union with the queen was a complex matter. Their marriage was dynastic, meaning it was tied to state interests. Even if the spouses could barely tolerate each other, they had to reconcile and carry on. But, I must emphasize, this was the case during the era when etiquette reigned supreme, starting in the middle of the 17th century. Thus, the answer for the king was clear: the favorite was better than the queen. She was not bound by obligations. She was completely one of them, allowing herself a sense of ease and lightness in conversation. Even if the queen was young and attractive, it was challenging to elicit the same spontaneity from her as from the favorite. Her position required the queen to behave quite differently. So, the second role for the legitimate queen was, unfortunately, a reality of that time. Both Maria Theresa and Catherine of Braganza, along with many others, were deserving of love and respect. It just so happened that their husbands preferred their favorites.